To start with, this entire project is based around word frequency lists. It was something of a problem finding a decent list. When I look at this list I found on the Topic Guide website, there's a number of problems that I see with it. I have zero doubts that the most common words really would be the verbs to do or to be, as shown as hada and ita here. The problem is that they don't really manifest in these conjugations very often. You're much more likely to see them as han, honda, hanen, hago, hamnida, hamnika, and even more often you're going to see them show up as he, heyo, or hessa. The same situation with ita. It manifests more commonly as isa, isamyan, ichi, iko, inun, inunde, isumnida. To find a list that actually considers the different manifestations of the verbs wasn't really easy. I managed to find one here at this site, although there were problems with the document, and so I had to reformat it myself to put it in order and make it take up less room. And my end product looks something more like this. On my first analysis of this list, I noticed a ton of words that all seem to have a similar meaning, but I usually couldn't find a definition on Wiktionary. And in the first 200 words, I counted about 40 of these, which makes it 20% of the first 200 words. As it turns out, these words tend to function as conjunctions of sort. To try to memorize all these words would be too much of a hurdle, so it's better to do these slightly out of order. First thing to note about Korean grammar is its use of particles, which may sometimes be referred to as postpositions, which are also pretty common in other languages like Japanese. The verb comes at the end of the sentence, which makes for some odd Yoda-style sentence constructions, where we would say in English, I am going to school. A Korean equivalent is going to come out something like, I school to going am. To say I ate a carrot is going to be something like I carrot whole ate. You get more complex sentences like I took the garbage to the curb for you. It's going to end up looking something more like you for I curb to garbage'll took. That would almost immediately sound complicated and sound like a real headache. So it's better to take things just one step at a time. So with number one we have mo, which means what. It turns out, mo is a contraction of the more proper term, muat. Of course, contractions are like in English when we put two words together. While contractions are fairly abundant in English, they tend to adhere to some pretty strict rules. Their main functions are to combine pronouns with verbs or to combine verbs with negation. So essentially, if you took the word muat and you shortened it into one syllable being what, and then just dropped the T, it's mo. You'll notice the vowel being spelled as EO. In reality, it's a short O sound, but we don't really differentiate in English, so it's way easier to just think of it as the sound, as in fun, sun, and run. And this is, of course, to differentiate from the U that we use for the vowel sound, as in shu, you, or tu. Examples of other contractions in Korean would be nonen into non, moesol into mool, or kugashi into kuge. A simple extension would be the use of particles like we mentioned before, where ya is a particle added to represent emphasis, in the case of moya. With number two, we have ku, meaning that. Again, we have an odd spelling with an extra e in there, and it's to differentiate between the different sounds, because if we wrote them all with a u, it would be really difficult. From ku, we get all those derived terms I mentioned that serve as conjunctions. It essentially turns ku from meaning that into being a verb that means to be that. Of course, the different conjugations or variations of it result in slightly different meanings. In the case of kure, kureso, kuredo, kuga, kuge, kunyang, kuran, kuram, kuramyan, kuranika. and on about 40 times or so. And on well over 40 times. Probably the two most important terms associated with ku is to say kuga, meaning that thing, and kurake, meaning that way or like that. Or kurake, an adverb that means to be that way or like that. The most important ones are kuga, meaning that thing, and kurake, meaning that way or like that. If we take I meaning this, we can make similar terms such as iga meaning this thing and irake meaning this way or like this. In this example, we actually see both used in kurande wa ire, which is pretty close to saying, although things are like that, why be this way? Since things are like that, why do things this way? With number 3, we have the first verb, he, which basically means do. Again, we have odd spelling, and it's to differentiate between two sounds. Although it's actually okay to mix these two up occasionally. With extensions, we have terms like onhe, meaning not do, or mohe, meaning can't do. In the case of soshimhe, we have a verb created from a term derived from Chinese, xiaoxin. In this case, soshim would mean shyness, and he means do. Therefore, soshimhe means be shy. Like other Asian languages, Korean tends to have a lot of homophones, or words that sound the same. In this case, we have another word adopted from Chinese, lijie, meaning comprehension, the Korean pronunciation being ihe, with ihe mote, meaning can't understand. With number 4, we have ga, or gut, meaning thing. It's another case of ga being considered a contraction of gut. So you have iga and igut, meaning this thing, and kuga and kugut, meaning that thing. I could be wrong, but it seems that ga is more common in speech and gut is more common in writing. In the case of amagoto anin, we have amu meaning any, and do being an end particle that means also. An interesting aspect of Korean and Japanese is that they don't really have a word for nothing, with the exception of adopting a Chinese word or a more typical way of saying anything also is not. Although this is a fairly complicated sentence, it's a good example of how the word go is used in a way we don't really do in English. If we take the word chapta, meaning grasp, we can use it in the form chanun to modify go, where we are now describing the thing as a grasped thing. In the case of kamo chapta, meaning to grasp a feeling, which turns out to be an idiom for getting the hang of something, kamu mot chanun ga would be a thing you can't get the hang of, and then ya is added as a means of emphasis. There's a small problem with this example in that it doesn't tell us who can't get the hang of it. With number 5, we can introduce pronouns, with na or ne being I or me, and na or ni being you. You'll occasionally see ne used instead of ni, and that can be problematic since it sounds so similar to ne, but luckily it's very rare. They're pretty specific to which topic particle they take, leading to constructions like nanen and nonen, or nega and niga. Since none describes what you're talking about in general, this can result in what would be considered an incomplete sentence in English. You state what you're describing and then describe it, so there's no need for words like is or am. Nan in Rocket Girl is to say, as for me, I am a rocket girl. With nega or niga, we end up with a more complete sentence. In this case, nega is actually the subject of the verb, with nega cheil chao naga. If you listen close, it sounds more like chao laga. In this example, we have the word malgo, which is somewhat complicated. It has the meaning of something along the lines of besides or other than, except it comes after whatever term you're describing. So in the case of 다른 남자 말고 너, we'd have to translate it as no other man but you.
다른 남자 말고 너 다른 남자 말고 너 가슴이 뛰는데 Come on 네가 먼저 다가가 사랑한단 말을 해 이제 그래도 돼 네가 먼저 시작해
Similar to 나는 and 너는, we can attach un or nun to any word to make it the topic of discussion. And which one you use is determined by whether the word ends in a consonant or a vowel. In the same way, we have ul and rul to mark a word as the object of the verb. This is the case with 문을 여시오. When pronouns combine with these particles, they tend to form contractions, as is the case with 난 예술이야.
난 예술이야 날 갖고 노는 건지 널 갖고 노는 건지 누가 기지고 있는지 어쨌든 궁금해 너 어쨌든 매력있어 게임 시작됐어 날 갖고 노는 건지 널 갖고 노는 건지 누가 기지고 있는지 어쨌든 궁금해 너 어쨌든 매력있어 게임 시작됐어 급하게 빠지지 마 급하게 허락지 마 take it easy 하나하나씩.
With number 7 we have E meaning this. We would say this vowel sound is pronounced as a sound in teeth. And interesting enough, it also happens to be the word for teeth. This is of course due to adoption of Chinese vocabulary. It could also stand for the number 2, but most of the time it specifically means this. And since we already know iroke means this way and kuroke means that way, we can introduce another form, which is 어떻게, meaning how or in what way.
말해버릴까 싶어 이렇게 매일 가슴 아파 그런데 왜 이래 네 앞에만 서면 작아져 버려 어떡해 자꾸 상상만 하는 걸요 어떻게 하나 그땐 어떤 내가 말하고 싶어
Although modern English doesn't really have such a distinction, most languages distinguish between saying that or there near the person you're speaking to, or that or there in a place more distant. Although it's considerably less common, chorake does occur and works in a manner similar to the other terms.
너는 너 나는 나 hey, 이렇게 저렇게 상관없이 너는 너 나는 나 이렇게 저렇게 네가 너 내가 잘 나가서 그렇지 뭐.
There's an interesting paradigm with these words in that similar constructs can be made with each of them. There's an obvious relationship between saying iga and kugat, and then the question word fits in as muat. In a similar way, the words for here and there manifest as yuggy and kuggy or chuggy, and the word for where would be adi. With number 8, we should recall ga being used as a particle. In the case of nega and niga, those are words that end in vowels. So if a word was to end in a consonant, it would take e instead of ga. For example, if we take Hanguk, which means Korea, it would take markers in the form of Hangugun, Hangugi, or Hangugul. If we take Hanguga, meaning the Korean language, it would take these markers in the form Hanguganun, Hangugaga, or Hanguguru. An interesting note about the word go, though. Since a proper term is gut and would end in a consonant, it should take e instead of ga as a subject particle, resulting in gushy. When using gut instead of gut, instead of taking ga, it would still take e. This has resulted in combining the two words into the form ge. That's to say, iga plus e would equal ige. Kuga plus e would equal kuge. But apart from this rare situation, e always goes with words ending in consonants. As would be in the case of this example, in which the word mom, meaning heart, takes the e particle to result in mommy. It's important not to mistake the particle ga with the verb kata, meaning to go. In extensions of this verb kata, the k sound reverts to a g, although the word would usually pronounce kata, ka, kayo. In the case of go out, nagata, the k sound reverts to a g sound, resulting in nagata, nagayo, nagaso, etc. This G or T ending of a verb is difficult to quantify. It may be similar to the Japanese term ne. Its most important function is in creating negative commands. In contrast to the negative verbs we've mentioned before with onhei and motei, we have ma, which would normally appear in phrase books as mashio or mashipshio, but may more commonly appear as simply ma.